Oh my gosh. I just finished watching the 50-part Who the F Did I Marry series by Risa Tisa on TikTok, and we gotta get into it.
Please excuse the hair, but here is part one of Who the F Did I Marry?
Okay, not necessarily into the context of what she was talking about, but get into the takeaways that I, as a content creator, as a marketer, as a brand strategist, have pulled from this. And I kind of want to share it in more of a case study on why she has defied all of the standard social media short form content growth strategies. She has kind of just gone completely against what the typical social media advice is and created a crazy viral series that is honestly unforgettable. So in case you don't know what I'm talking about, this is a 50-part series, which means that now TikTok, you can upload 10-minute long videos, and pretty much each video that she uploaded was 10 minutes long, and it is a 50-part series on how she met, married, and divorced a pathological liar. Now, the story itself is insane, okay? I want to take time to encourage you, if you have not already, go watch it. Even if you don't watch the whole series, which as soon as you start watching it, you're gonna get sucked in. But even if you don't watch the whole series, I encourage you to watch parts of it just so you can understand where I'm coming from with this advice, okay? So we're gonna do kind of a case study. I'm gonna share all of the takeaways as a content creator that you can get just from watching Risa Tisa's series. And I'm always thinking like that. I'm like, man, like this just really works, and I get it. So first things first, if you don't take anything away, is that everybody has a story. You have a story. The issue is most people do not know how to tell their story in a compelling enough way to keep people interested. And in this series, we see how masterful Risa tells her story, and that is what keeps people hooked. Somebody else can experience the exact same thing as Risa, have a very similar story, but that does not mean that if they hop on TikTok and do a 50-part series that it's going to be as successful as hers, simply because she has mastered the art of storytelling. So I want to break down some of the things that make a good story, which we saw her do throughout the entire series. First things first is that the intention of the series was very clear from the very beginning. She says, this is part one of Who the F Did I Marry? Well, actually, before the series even started, she had a video where she says,
Okay, so things that my pathologically lying ex-husband lied about.
And basically, she goes into a very broadened version of the story. And because that picked up so much, she ends up delving into all the details and kicking off this 50-part series. Now, the series was set up very intentionally in terms of her hook was very strong. She captured you right at the beginning because it's like, wait, am I with the pathological liar? Like, who the F did I marry? Just having that on the screen in the first place it catches your attention, right? So first of all, she caught your attention very early on with her hook of the story. Now, another thing that every good story has is a beginning, a middle, and an end. It does not matter how long it takes you to tell that story. It just needs to have all three of those parts. And in the beginning, she sets the scene. She tells about how they met. She goes through all of the things, how she got hooked into him. And then she lets the middle unfold. She starts developing their character, right? So she starts explaining the type of person she is, the type of person he is. We really start to feel like we know these characters that she is creating, or not creating, but like that she's introducing into the story. And it wasn't just her and him, it was other people that she continued to introduce throughout the entire series, where she used, next thing, very descriptive language to help you picture what was actually going on. Outside of picturing the people, because she would describe how people looked, or, you know, she would just describe their vibe. She also described just everything, the type of cars they're driving, what things look like, what things smell like. She was very descriptive. Now, some people may think that being descriptive is too long-winded, but it provides imagery and it allows the viewer or the listener to connect even further, because now we're able to picture in our minds what you're saying. So descriptive words or being descriptive in how you're explaining things is very important in good storytelling. Another thing that every story needs is conflict or some type of interference. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as marrying a pathological liar. However, there has to be some type of conflict in every good story. You would probably never go to the movies if every movie was just like happy all the way through or positive all the way through. There has to be some introduction, because that allows the characters to actually develop. The conflict is where the substance of the story lies. So there has to be some type of conflict. Now, what Risa Tisa did masterfully is she basically created a whole series. So if you think about watching a television show and you think about each episode has its own storyline. And each episode has a beginning, a middle, and an end. At the end, when the story is not complete, there always has to be a cliffhanger to keep the viewer interested in the next part. Or else you just fall off of the series. You're not interested. You're like, okay, whatever. This isn't holding my attention enough. So what she did was so very well is, on top of maintaining the overall storyline of the entire 50-part series, she also had specific stories for each part that didn't introduce too much into each part, but just kept it just enough with a cliffhanger at the end where she would say, and that is what I'm going to explain in part 32. And you're just like, oh my God, I have to know what the brother said on the phone.
Why did he have to go to jail for the weekend? And I'm going to end this part here. The next part has to do with his criminal history.
So think about that when you're creating series like this. Don't just think of, oh shoot, I'm out of time. The next part will be in the next part of the series. Think about how to conclude what you are currently talking about in this one part and leave a cliffhanger for people to be intrigued enough to go to the second part. A lot of times with these series, people just run out of time and then they're like, okay, I'll share the rest in the next part because I don't have enough time left. And it can work, but at the same time, again, she has mastered the art of storytelling and she really nailed that part of it. And finally, it needs an end. Some type of resolution, some type of end result, which we saw in each part, but we also saw at the very end of the series. So you can't just have people invest so much time and so much energy and then just kind of leave them hanging. You have to conclude, whether it is a positive or a negative conclusion. Okay, so that's the storytelling part. Another thing that I think everyone could take away from this is that aesthetics do not mean as much as you think they do. And we hear so many people saying this, especially now, but she is living proof. She, Keith Lee, a whole bunch of huge influencers at this point should be proving the point that aesthetics are not as important as the overall message, okay? You can have a dingy kitchen, what you think is dingy. It doesn't have all the white and the marble and all the aesthetics, but that should not stop you. Risa was showing up in one scene in her in her scarf, in another scene in her cute little wig, in another scene in her, rollers. She didn't care because she knew that the story was more valuable than what she currently looked like. And nobody also cared. Like, we just want the tea, sis. So I think even for me, like, I wasn't even going to record today, but I'm like, I don't have any makeup on, like, but I'm just like, you know what, Erin, just get the content out, okay? If I got anything from that, that's what I got from this. Another takeaway from this series was that it is so smart to upload a whole bunch of parts at one time. If you have a story that you want to tell and it has multiple parts to it, do not wait until the next day or 3 days later if you don't have to. She was very smart in putting 10 videos, 15 videos up at one time so that people could just keep watching, keep binging. It's kind of like when you know, have a Netflix show that you like and you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad that all the episodes are up because I don't feel like waiting until next week. The same rules apply. In addition to that, it's take as long as you need to tell a story, as long or as short as you need. What a lot of people ask me, especially about YouTube or about TikTok, what is the optimal time that I should be taking or I should be creating a video? Like, how long is the best length for a YouTube video? How long is the best length for a TikTok? Baby, as long as it takes to tell the story. That is as long as you need. So if it feels like you've crammed too much into too little and people want more, then take the time. And that's what she did. She took the time and really flushed out the story. Versus if it's taking you 30 minutes to tell a story that could have been condensed into 10 minutes, then, you know, condense it, okay? So that's part of learning storytelling, though, is being able to understand the optimal amount of time. And you don't know until you continue to practice. You put out content, you see what people like, you see how they respond, and that allows you to tune in on your storytelling skills. All right, this is one that is common, but it's that the content that you don't expect to win is always the content that wins. It is always the content that you are just like, I'm just gonna put this out there. We're gonna see, you know, whatever. And then that's the content that ends up taking off. Do not underestimate the power of being vulnerable or the power of showing something authentic or the power of not having it all together in order to show up. Because oftentimes it's that content that ends up taking you into a whole nother realm as a content creator. It can change your entire life. Risa is, I'm sure she has made 6 figures just from the creator beta program that TikTok has to pay content creators, just off of all of the views and the traffic that she has gotten on this content. So don't feel like it has to be pretty, not aesthetically, but also in terms of what you're sharing. Obviously, sharing vulnerable and personal things can come with its fair share of consequences, and I feel like you should make your best judgment. I am not by any means saying go online and share something that you're not comfortable sharing for the sake of getting views. What I am saying is if you feel it in your heart to open up, because what Risa said was, the reason why I shared this is purpose driven. It is because I want, if even one woman is going through something similar to me, I want her to think back on this story and pay more attention, acknowledge the red flags, do more research, get out of the relationship, whatever that looks like for her. And if you have that motive, most of the time, that is the content that performs. Not just online, but it performs as impact in someone else's life. Bottom line is people connect to people, real people. And yes, there's the aspirational content of all the people who live these what seem like perfect lives, which could very well be their story. I'm just not one to agree that everything you see online is fake or everything is a highlight reel. Some people, be okay with knowing that some people actually live really good, happy lives. I think that, and that doesn't take anything away from them being real humans. I also think that there has become this pressure that people have to show up in that way. And I just want you to know that people connect to real people. It does not matter. It does not matter. You just have to show up as your real self. And I feel like that is the proof that you will need to see that people care more about what you are giving them from yourself than what they are seeing, which is what a lot of aspiring content creators tend to care about. I'm just hopeful that this series has opened the eyes of a lot of content creators. I hope that it encourages women to go with their gut and all of the things that Risa shared in terms of how she wants this series to impact women. But I also think that it has just inspired me to be like, girl, just show up. You don't got to put the makeup on. That also don't mean that I'm gonna come on here looking in a standard that I don't feel comfortable on camera with. But you don't have to like do all the things just to share what you have. You just need to share what you have, and people will appreciate that, and they will love you even more for it. So I hope this video encourages you. I will link Risa's TikTok down below if you haven't heard of or you haven't checked out the series. Highly recommend it. It is so juicy. You will be hooked. But even if you don't want to watch the whole thing, please just go watch, you know, at least the first couple parts so you can get a feel for like what this whole video is kind of explaining. Anyway, she has the internet in shambles. I hope sis gets her BMW with the cognac seats in navy blue. I hope she gets her trip to Europe, and I just hope she finds love. I think this is gonna be such a cool story to unfold like over however long she continues to share like if these things start to come into her life. But anyway, I love you guys. I hope this video was encouraging, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.